Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of HBHA Lore. I'm your host, Mike Margulies, where each episode I am joined by a wonderful person who is connected to HBHA's past and present. I am delighted to be joined today by a very special guest. And I must say, on my own end, I have to admire my restraint, which is that every HBHA class is special and unique in their own wonderful way. But I have waited a while to bring on a guest from my own class, which is maybe the most special class in HBHA history. I might be biased, but that's the wonderful class of 2008. But I am thrilled to be joined today by one of my great friends from the class of 2008, HBHA alum, Jordan Marks. Welcome to HBHA Lore, Jordan.
Wow. Wow. What an honor. What an honor. Yeah, I mean, objectively the best class. I think if we're looking back at the facts, we're the best. And yeah, I mean, I've been waiting for you to do this too. I'm honored that I'm the first one from your class to be here. We've certainly got a lot of lore to tell. And
There's a lot of lore to tell, which we'll get to.
yeah.
By the end of the episode, everyone listening will be in agreement that this is indeed the peak, perhaps, of HBHA lore. When I started the podcast, I could have just made it where each episode was a different person from our class. We have 21 in our graduating class, which is a pretty impressive number. But we'll circle back to all the HBHA lore. But before we get there, a lot has happened in the 17 intervening years since we've graduated. That sounds like an insane number, but somehow that is the number of years since we graduated. But Jordan, why don't you tell our listeners what you've been up to in that intervening time? What do you do for a living nowadays?
Right. So I am an emergency physician. I work in New York City. I live in New York City. I work in New Jersey, just over the George Washington Bridge. And going back, from graduation from HBHA, I spent a year at KU for undergrad, which we enjoyed together.
Yes,
We lived just across the hill from each other. You
I was
lived
in
in the nerd
Templin.
dorm. You were in the nerd dorm, and
I
I
was
was
in your
in,
dorm, Templin, and you were in McCullough.
which is now destroyed, thankfully.
McCullum. There's an M at the end.
McCollum.
Which has
Yes,
now been
yes.
destroyed and made way for probably much nicer dorms.
Yeah, for the best, for the best. I'm glad that thing's gone. But was at Kansas for a year, then transferred to Emory for the rest of undergrad, med school back at KU, which you also benefited from. I got cheap basketball tickets that you were able to enjoy.
True.
So and then did residency in New York City, and since then have lived here and just been slowly moving my way further north in Manhattan. So started at 59th Street, now up to 150th Street. There's not much more to go. It's kind of like a suburb up here, to be honest. It's quiet. There's parks. I'm like a 20-minute drive from my hospital. And in the meantime, got married and have three kids, two of which are twins who are 11 months old.
That is wonderful. We'll come back to the family stuff, but I want to hear a little bit more about your work as a doctor. So you said you're an emergency room physician. So
Yes.
what are kind of the types of things that you deal with on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I mean, I tell people the ER is kind of the most exciting 10 minutes of every single specialty. So, uh, anytime someone thinks they're having an emergency, they come to the ER. That could be something like they have the worst abdominal pain of their life. It could mean that they pass out. It could mean that they're having chest pain. It could mean that they're hit by a car. It kind of is insanely variable, and every day is different. So our job is to pretty much assess patients, decide who is sick, who is not sick, decide who needs to stay in the hospital, who needs a specialist to see them, and then we clock out, and then the next day, rinse, wash, and repeat.
And if I recall correctly, you were also living and working in New York during kind of the height of COVID. And I remember talking to you then about that. And I remember you were saying that it was just kind of a crazy experience where you were dealing with all of these patients. How did that specific kind of era of work, which was probably more towards, I'm assuming, kind of not right after you had started working as a physician, but earlier on in your career. But what was kind of that specific experience like working in an emergency room setting in New York City when COVID was kind of exploding?
Right. It was strange. I mean, so I was in my last year of residency. I was a chief resident, and it was March of 2020. So we were graduating. I was graduating in July. I'd already had my job lined up, so we were kind of coasting. The new chiefs had already been selected. So, we started hearing about this strange virus in Asia in January. These things kind of popped up from time to time, and we all sort of poo-pooed it and said, okay, it'll be one of those things that kind of goes away on its own. And then it kind of became very clear in February and early March that it was not going to go away and it was going to be a pretty terrible situation.
Not ideal.
So, I remember vividly the first couple patients coming in where we were kind of convinced, oh, this is it, and a lot of people were okay, but just sort of had this virus with fever for a week and were kind of short of breath. And then they were healthy enough to go home, but then eventually there was probably a 3 to 4 week period where it was essentially just nonstop, severely ill COVID patients that we tried our best to take care of. And it was a very strange time because we didn't know much about the virus. So it was some of the things we were doing, looking back on, were probably, not knowing what we know now, not the optimal care. So it was kind of just like flying by the seat of our pants, doing the best we could, and then just trying to get through it and help people as best as we could. But it was definitely a eye-opening experience, and something that you only kind of talk about happening and never expect to happen.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember talking to you a little bit when it happened, and you just describing it as just like this flood, this wave of patients coming in, and you guys, like you just said there, trying to figure it out on the fly of how best to help everyone and deal with this and also mitigate risk for other people. I know another thing that you've done was as part of kind of your medical journey is you've had some experience working on ambulances. Isn't that correct? Can you just talk a little bit about when you did that and where you were with that and kind of what that experience was like and what you gained from doing that?
Right. So I've always kind of been enamored by like lights and sirens and, childhood, like, oh yeah, let's, that's so cool. Big lights, noises. So I was always sort of attracted to it. And then when I transferred to Emory, they had an undergrad EMS program. So you essentially, the first year I was there, I took a class that was like, 2 nights a week. And then junior and senior year, you're part of the student run EMS response system. So, we respond to 911 calls, and I loved it. It was great. Kind of solidified my interest in emergency medicine. And then after I graduated from Emory, worked for a year full time working on 911 ambulance in Atlanta, before starting med school, which was a great experience, but probably harder than anything I've ever done in terms of like career wise, like harder than med school, harder than even what I do now on a day-to-day basis. It was just so physically and emotionally demanding that at the end of the year doing that, I was like, I'm so ready to go to school. And it made med school seem very, very relaxing compared to what that year was like.
All right. So the advice is for aspiring doctors before you go to med school, do EMS training, work on the ambulance, and then med school degrees.
Yeah, pretty much get run down to the point where anything is better than that, and then you'll be like, oh, that's easy.
You just want your body to be as physically incapacitated and exhausted as possible.
Exactly. Exactly.
You did also mention, right, the 3 children you have, and jumping from you have one older child. How old is he right now?
He's 4. Maury is our firstborn. He's 4. He just turned 4, and he is in pre-K and hilarious. And he, yeah, 4 years old and hilarious.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Currently, he just stopped peeing his pants at night, and he gets very excited about it and wakes us up at 5:30 in the morning to announce that he's not peeing his pants, which is great, but also let me sleep.
Yeah, it's like that could be 7:30 in the morning news in theory.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you, but also time to go to sleep.
It's time to go to bed. And then you've got the 11-month-old twins. What was it? How was it transitioning? That's, not jumping from 1 to 2 kids, jumping from 1 to 3. That's
right. I will say, I think it's much easier than if we had twins off the bat, like having the experience of raising one kid and then being able to have, that knowledge going into raising numbers 2 and 3 made it easier, not kind of freaking out about every cry or, understanding that, you know, uh, how to best get them to sleep and stuff was very helpful. But it it's pretty much a party that we can never leave.
And nor would you want to, right?
No,
It's a
no.
great party that you wanna be a part of. Were you pretty shocked in the doctor's office when you got that news that in fact there were
Yeah.
is not one coming?
Well, that assumed that I was there with Amy when she found out, which is not most husbands would be. We were like, oh, we've been through this. I was working, and so the office was right next to the ER where Amy's
So
OBGYN is, and
how
so
did she break the news to you?
she FaceTimed me while she was getting the ultrasound, and she was crying with a smile on her face, and I said, just tell me it's not triplets.
Oh wow, you knew. You were like, I can tell from the smile there's good news here. But also something was unexpected. This is not exactly what we thought was going to happen.
Right. We knew we were pregnant, and we knew it was, we were excited. We were very excited. It was like, yes, we did, we did it, and this is so great. But like, I was expecting like a call after being like, everything looks good.
Yeah.
And, there's really not many other things you would be happy crying about
Mm-hmm.
while, a doctor is actively doing an ultrasound on you
That's true.
in that situation. So my rapid deduction skills were at an all-time high at that point.
There was all that EMS training, which allowed you to and
Oh
I
my God, yeah.
maybe watching Sherlock, great show.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
well, you mentioned Amy, your wonderful wife, and you guys have, I would say kind of like a classic, Jewish meeting story. Can you tell us a little bit about how you and your wife Amy ended up getting together?
Right. Yeah. Very classic, very original. It's we met at summer camp. We met at Herzl Camp, which is in Wisconsin. Still HBHA,
Oh yeah,
strong HBHA contingent.
The Herzl brigade at HBHA is still going very strong.
It's excellent. It's
And maybe
excellent
some of
brigade.
them can get married after they're inspired by your story.
I mean, that is the point of Jewish summer camp, right?
To
Is
find
to
yourselves.
You don't realize that when you're in it, but
Yeah.
that's why people donate millions of dollars to these camps. But the I never went as a camper because I was too much of a wuss to go to summer camp when I was in middle school. Um, but our friends in our class who maybe will be on this podcast one day, Asher Bratt, Scott Bratt, Jonah Chilton, they all went. And so after I graduated high school, they were like, "Hey, come work at camp." I said, "Okay, I'll face my fear." And it was, Amy and I met when I was 18, but we didn't start dating until we were both 21. We were working at camp at that point, and we were long distance for a few years. She moved to Kansas when I was in med school. We got married just before we started residency and moved to New York, and just haven't really, left yet. And just making a home here for now.
So it was Herzl that brought you together. Maybe a glorious romantic Kabbalat Shabbat.
It was. There's lots of again, maybe not the time. Maybe not this podcast might not be the time and place to talk about all the details of the Herzl,
Shenanigans.
Shenanigans. There's probably but if you want to know more, go to Herzl Camp and have a great
Find
time.
out for yourself.
Maybe find your spouse.
Maybe
Exactly.
you'll end up getting married and having twins a decade later. Who knows?
Yeah, if you want to have twins, go to Herzl Camp. That's the correlation and causation.
That sounds mathematically sound to me. You also live in a very cool part of the country, right? You said so. You live on the New Jersey side. Is that what you said?
So we live in the New York side,
Oh, on the New York side.
but very close to the George Washington Bridge. Actually, not far from where the Sarachek tournament is where we live. So we we live the northwest corner of Manhattan essentially, and the George Washington Bridge is in the northwest corner. I cross over to go to work, and then that's Jersey on the other side of the bridge. So it's more suburbia than like you. I think most people probably think of New York City like, oh, Times Square, huge skyscrapers, concrete jungle. This is like definitely dense housing, but there's plenty of parks. The Hudson River is about a 4-minute walk west. Quiet, lots of families, and so a different version of Manhattan than most people probably have in their head.
what are, now that you've been there for a while, whether it's more of like the big city New York things people might
Mhm.
think about, or things that are more in your neck of the woods, what are some of your favorite places to hit up in your local area?
Yeah, I mean, I have a not as much now with
So like
having three
we have three
children.
kids under the age of 5, so the place I hit up is my own
Right,
and my own bed, which I'm then woken up from at 5:30 in the morning to be told that
right,
I'm in my pants.
right. Yeah, I didn't pee my pants. Yeah. So, we have my schedule is really random. So I like today I don't work till 4 p.m. So, when it's nice out, I'll just hop on a bike and then just bike down the river to Lower Manhattan and go find, some of them pop up on social media, or my friend will send me a it's like, oh, pizza place that's amazing, or something that was really fun. So I'll bike down there. It's like a 30-minute bike ride down the river. Um, Walk around, get a bite to eat, and then bike back up. So I feel like I got exercise, but also just like pounded 2 slices of pizza at the same time.
Well, is it like when Michael Scott in The Office goes to New York City and he says, "Gonna get me a New York slice," and he walks into a Sbarro?
Yeah, yeah. I think about that scene a lot.
Maybe more authentic.
Um, yeah, I think about the scene a lot. And thankfully, it's not Sbarro, although I do think there are some redeeming qualities of Sbarro, which
Oh,
maybe you can discuss on another episode of the podcast. But
oh,
it's
we can just.
I think it's
I
fine.
I have enjoyed a slice of Sbarro at an airport with you before on at least one occasion,
Absolutely,
multiple. So I'm not.
absolutely. People, there's like a Domino's and a Papa John's like within walking distance from my apartment, and people come visit. And they're like, "Why would anyone ever live here and go eat Domino's and Papa John's?" I'm like, "Look, sometimes you just need a 5.99 medium pizza. That's what you need. You don't need the nicest slice in the world. You need a 5.99 medium pizza."
But speaking of the nicest slices, is there a place where you're like, this is the best pizza joint? This is where you gotta go.
Yes, it's called Mama's Two. There's two locations, one on the Upper West Side, one in Lower Manhattan. Mama's
Mama's
Two, T
like
O O. No,
oh,
T O O.
also Mama's also. Additionally, this is the Mama.
Also mothers. Also mothers.
Also Mothers.
Yeah. But it's
Um.
it's actually strangely enough, it's Detroit style, so it's like thick square slices.
Okay.
But
Well,
if anyone comes and visits, feel free to look it up, and you won't be disappointed.
I don't think I will be. I know that you and Amy also, and again, maybe not quite as much since the babies have arrived, but also like to travel and have done some cool traveling together. Any favorite places that you guys have been? It could be either with the kids or before the kids arrived.
Yes, so it's probably a little bit of recency bias, but we just were in London, just me and her for 4 days. We have an amazing nanny who stayed overnight for a few days. I had a little extra help, but we went to my wife is from Minneapolis, so she's a huge Vikings fan. Vikings now are my second favorite team behind the Chiefs, obviously. And we went to the Vikings Browns game in London at Tottenham Stadium, which was amazing, and spent a couple days in London. She had never been, I had been a long time before, so it was just nice to explore a new city, not have any agenda, really be able to sleep, you know. And I think a lot of parents feel this way, that all you want when you're kind of in the depths of childcare is to have a break, but then when you get the break from your children, all you do is think about and talk about your children.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's
So,
um
so there was some of that, but it was an amazing trip. London's amazing. It's so easy to get to from New York. It's like a 5 hour flight, and it was a great time.
wow, that flies by. What was the best part of
The football game was amazing. We had amazing seats. We ran into Jason Sudeikis because they were having like Ted Lasso. Like they used Ted Lasso to like rope together the U.S. and the U.K.
Did you get
So I was like
like
too,
actually see
I
him?
was too shy.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. So I was like too shy to say anything. And then Amy was like, "Hey," well, I mean, she called him Ted Lasso, which is hilarious. But she's like, "Hey, Ted, like Jordan's from Kansas." And then he like looked over and like came over and like shook my hand, and it was pretty sweet.
oh, you should have been wearing that like amazing. He has like that all KC barbecue shirt that it's like a cut,
Yes, yes, yes.
O's and Gate and all those different barbecues on there. But yeah, just hey Ted.
Hey,
But
Ted, and I was like, "That's
not,
not his name."
not,
And then I
or,
was too much of a wuss to like say anything. But it was actually really funny there. It was like I said this while we are at the stadium you know, at the stadium, it's mostly fans from the UK. So it's just like Jersey Day at the stadium because people just wear whatever jersey they want to wear, even if it's not the team that's playing.
did you
So
bring
it's
a
just like everyone's wearing their jersey.
did you rep with a KC jersey?
I didn't. I wore a Viking shirt. Vikings and Chiefs aren't aren't
not really
enemies by any
rivals.
means.
Can't remember a ton of memorable
In
Chiefs.
Super Bowl one or two was that, was it, or
A
am I
little before my
mistaken
time, so I'm not going to hold it against them.
there? Yeah.
Yeah, incredible. All right, well, life nowadays sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty busy.
Yeah.
Sounds maybe a little sleep deprived.
Slightly.
But I think it's time. I think it's time for us to wind back the clock a little bit to the days of
Let's
yore.
do it.
And maybe hear about some of those great HBHA memories. Now, the fun thing about this for me is usually when I talk to people on this podcast, I am hearing stories and I'm like, oh, that's a great story. That's cool. Sometimes it's someone I've taught, so I know some of their stories.
Right.
But with you, where the direction that you're gonna, whatever direction you'll go, and I'm not sure what you'll bring up here, I know pretty much all the stories because I was there. I was there right alongside you, kindergarten through 12th grade. Well, I technically joined the class in first grade. I started. I was a K through 12er as were you, but I was a year behind you, and then I kind of merged kindergarten and first grade together. I kind of like skipping a grade, but I just kind of joined halfway through the year. I was like, "Hello, I'm here. I'm just gonna be in your class now."
Right.
You guys were like, "Okay, great. We'll
right. We're like, okay, we're 8 years old. We don't know what's going on.
let's do it. So we can start broad, and then we can zoom in on maybe some specific highlights and memories. But just kind of thinking back about your HBHA experience, what jumps out at you? Either how you would describe it overall, or what specific memories and experiences just kind of come to mind when you think back about your 13 years there.
Yeah, I think it's funny as you kind of like get older and get further away from an event or like from a time, you like the memories kind of concentrate a little bit where like you have specific memories of certain things that stay there and a lot of other ones kind of go away. And it's like, oh, there must be some important reason these memories are still here. Like they must mean something or must have been important. So I think that like when I look back at this kind of like collection of them, most of them are like extracurricular activity based. And, I think when I am talking to other people and telling them about what I did in high school, it's kind of crazy, like all the things that I got to do. I was not like a particularly like athletic human.
What about you had a great 15-foot baseline jumper?
I did, but I did have I had that's true. But I got to play at like competitive soccer and basketball for 4 years, which is like not something that most people get to do, especially not people who are like athletically gifted. And then like aside from that, like yearbook, newspaper, the play, kind of just like nonstop activities all the time. And I think that in the moment when you're going through it, it's like it seems just normal. Like, oh yeah, of course I'm gonna do all this stuff. Like I like all this stuff. Like I like this stuff, so therefore I will do it, which is just not the reality for most high schoolers. It's like, oh, you like it, you have to be picked to do it. You have to be good enough to do it. You have to, get lucky enough to do it. And so I think that so much of that, like I'm sure that I would be a different person if I didn't have that kind of like competitive experience for 4 years, or have that opportunity to do those things. So that's probably what was most important to me and kind of what most shaped me to be able to do that.
I think that's really well said. And when you brought up the athletic things, I immediately have two distinct visuals that come to mind when thinking about you in sports. And you're a much better athlete than you're giving yourself credit for. I mean, you're a good player. But there's two memories that come to mind. And tell me if I'm sure you'll recall them as well. And which is one is on the soccer side, and you were playing maybe stopper, right, which is like the center defensive back. And there was a forward coming towards you, and you weren't really like approaching the guy. And as he came towards you, you just did like from a standstill in an attempted slide tackle. You just kind of dropped to your knee and tried kicking out. And the guy just like stopped and went around you. And Austin Benton, longtime soccer coach at HBHA and athletic director, who has now moved to Alabama, was just like, Jordan, what are you doing? Like, slide tackle from a standstill, like move with the guy. And then on the basketball side, I remember you making some basket and just holding the follow through. You had coaches always say, hold the follow through. And you would hold that follow. You held it for like 10 seconds. And I think the coach at the time was Corey Henry. And he was just like, what are you doing? Like, get back on defense. Like that, the shot went in 10 seconds ago. Let's move. But you
Yeah.
want to strike the pose, like the Heisman. Any particular athletics memories stick with you? Because sports were a big part of what both you and I did during our time there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember vividly both of those instances. What I'll say about my soccer career is whenever I was on the field, I was enjoying it, but I was perpetually afraid. And really, I was always afraid that I was going to have to do something that was critical, which tends to happen when you're on the field of a sporting event.
Soccer, unlike in basketball, where like there's so many, the field's so big, you can avoid the ball for a while. You can avoid the ball coming to you, but then sometimes it does, and it's like, I just want to get this away and up the field fast. Let's get this moving.
Right, right. Which is interesting that and maybe I should have told coach like I'm afraid, and he shouldn't have put me as like the last line of defense before the goalie. But yeah, really, the slide tackle was the only thing I had in my arsenal to just kind of throw my body at a ball, and it worked most of the time, to be honest. But that, yeah, I mean, I didn't have much else. And then that basketball story is it was the end of the first half, and I drained three at Blue Ridge Christian, and we were up by like quite a bit, and it was kind of like a little bit of a dagger going into halftime, and I held it for a long time, and then we got into the locker room and Corey Henry goes, "This is basketball. You're supposed to make baskets."
That's true. This is basketball. That has been a quote that has stood the test of time in our
which is true. That is the point of basketball, to make baskets.
He was correct. He was correct.
Yeah.
We also had a pretty, I would say, legendary lineup of classes and teachers. Are there any? You mentioned all the extracurricular stuff. Any particular, either it could be a whole class or a specific incident in the classroom or just an experience with a teacher that sticks with you all these years later?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two specifically, and I'll start with one, which I know you were very close with, Seth Thimberg.
Of course, Mr. Dim.
Again, as time goes on, you look back and as you grow into an adult, you realize like how crazy it is that some teachers kind of just pour their whole life into students. And he was one of those teachers. Like, he did everything. He taught all day, did the play, I don't think, is Rams Live still, it's not around, is it?
No. So do you want to tell the people a little bit about what Rams Live is for people who won't know? I do have an old school Rams Live jersey that I was able
to
through this year. It was just downstairs in the office, and I was like, I'm just going to take this because no one else is going to care about having this, and I want it. So what was Rams Live?
Rams Live was a live broadcast of basketball games for both home and away games, if I recall correctly. So people could listen, and fully started and set up by Seth Thimberg, which honestly at the time, like we're talking like 2005 to like 2010 it existed, I think. And like this is like early internet, like early broadband internet.
Yeah. Back then,
pretty advanced.
Netflix was, you were getting the DVDs in the mail, right? It's not like you were.
Yeah. Blockbuster still existed. Yeah. I mean, it was, you were still like plugging the cassette tape into your car and then plugging that into your thick iPod. That's how you're listening to music.
He may have invented streaming.
Yeah, I think so. So he would like essentially all year had something extracurricular, and just sort of, he kind of felt like he was just sort of like part of athletics, even though he had no direct connection to it. And he cared. He just was like so into what we did on the basketball court, and had like an investment in us in all manners. So he would be involved in that. He ran the yearbook. He ran the newspaper, the play. So essentially, just like, there's many ways to do a job, and he just sort of like did it like every other teacher, but more so, like, just was fully in it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did 4 years of the play with him. And to be clear, with the Rams Live thing that you said, he set it up, but it was students who broadcast the games. Like, we were the ones announcing the games. I, for quite a while, announced many of the games. When I was on JV, I announced a lot of the boys varsity games. And then when I was on boys varsity, I announced a lot of the girls varsity games.
Yeah. You were pretty good at it. You were good at it.
It was really fun. That's like a dream profession, is like being a broadcaster. That would be incredible. Like so awesome.
Yeah, I remember like you would say sometimes you would like get excited and I would just look at Mr. Dimmer and he would start like cracking up. He'd just be like laughing and like so happy that you were having so much fun and that it was working out.
I do not to toot my own horn too much, but I also recall I was very good at keeping track of the in-game statistics in my head because when you announce the game, there
That's
were
so surprising.
just like a real announcing booth. We'd have like a play-by-play person and a color person. Right, the play-by-play person's mostly announcing the action, and the color person's doing more of the analysis. Talking about the plays that are being run, calling out screens, things like that. And then there was a third person who would keep score and would show us
Right.
the stats. So we could be like, Corey Goodovitz is 8 of 10 from 3. Very common stat line for Corey Goodovitz.
Pretty much a game an expectation for him.
Yeah, that's a standard. I think making 8 threes in the game is called a Goodovitz.
Yes.
which Jeremy and Joel and maybe even Hillary have all attained at some point, certainly in various games over the years. Shout out to the incredible Goodovitz basketball dynasty at HBHA.
Seriously.
And no, but I would try. I was very good at keeping track of the stats in my head. So sometimes I would be like, oh, Corey's 5 of 7 from the field here, and he snagged his 3rd rebound, and Mr. Dimbert's there checking the stat line, and he's like, he's right. that's the right stats for that.
Right.
You announced some of those games, didn't you? Didn't you announce some of the?
I did a few. Yeah, I was a color guy on a few of them. It wasn't really fun. I mean, just cool to just experience that and realize how hard it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
To do that. It's so hard to like be a commentator on a game and like just keep the air, like stay away from dead air, and then also say things that made sense and were accurate and then weren't like boring.
Yeah, your brain has to be fast to process everything, and you have to be talking constantly, but also not losing track of your train of thought, right? And be commenting on one thing, but thinking about what you're going to say next. Okay, so you were saying, Mr. Dimber, any other in the school experiences you want to shout out that were just like, oh yeah, this one stuck with me?
Yeah, I mean, a silly one I thought of was, and this is pre-technology, this is pre-streaming, like no one had a cell phone at this point. It was always like an insanely exciting time when March Madness would come around because it was like, oh my God, like basketball is the most like KU basketball was like essentially, this was before the Chiefs were good. This is before we had when the Royals were so bad. So whenever March Madness would come around, like, this is our one chance for KU basketball to shine a light on our kind of like sports depression. So we would like find excuses to sneak down to the like tiny TV next to the sports desk at the JCC.
Yes.
And be like, oh yeah, I have to go to the bathroom, but like really, I'm not feeling good. It's gonna take a long time. And then we would like run down and watch the game. And obviously not like an academic a highlight academically, but just kind of it sticks in my head, and it's just clearly something that it was unique having the JCC attached to our school to like provide all that kind of stuff. But that was a fun moment to remember, to be able to go down there with like friends and sneak down for a few minutes and see what was going on.
Yeah. Well, when there's a moment that you haven't brought up yet, but that sticks very clearly in my mind, so I'm just going to bring it up.
Sure.
So we had the fortune of going to Israel as a class together twice.
Once, yeah.
On the March of the Living, which is now the Jewish Heritage Trip, is now the modern version of that, which we went on our senior year right before we graduated. And then once we also went in 9th grade.
Yes.
And we partnered with Kansas City's sister city, which is Ramla. And we met students there, Ido and many others. and some of those friendships carried on for several years.
Yeah.
But the experience that jumps out most to me is not, I mean, it took place in Israel, but it's not really Israel related per se. And I think where I'm headed with this, which is, I think it was on the 9th grade trip, which is we were out and about somewhere. I feel like we were in some sort of garden. It was like a lush outdoor area. And we looked around and suddenly everyone was just like, where's Jordan? Jordan's gone. Like, we haven't seen Jordan in like 40 minutes and we got to get back on the bus. Can you tell us where you were?
I actually don't know where the story's going. I'm being honest.
I'll recall. You got trapped in a bathroom. You got trapped in a bathroom that you had to escape from. I don't know how. Maybe something locked from the inside. But you eventually you found your way to the bus before we left. We didn't abandon you in another country. And we were just like, where were you? And you were like, yeah, I just got trapped in this bathroom and was like pounding on a door for 40 minutes. Do you
Right.
recall your great escape?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't remember the fine details of that. I now that, again, one of those memories is kind of like trapped in that memory was trapped in a bathroom in my mind, and you unlocked the door for me to remember it.
So to speak, yes.
But it's you go to a foreign country and you don't, the locks are different. You can't, it's you know what's going on. It's kind of like when you go through customs in Israel when you're being asked all those crazy questions. It's hard, you get nervous, and I probably just got confused and didn't know how to unlock the door. But yeah, that was, I mean, I was I was certainly not always the brightest, light in the chandelier at that moment. But yeah, no, I'm glad you guys didn't leave without me. It might still be in there for word for you guys waiting for me.
And there's another thing that I was talking to you about before we got on, and we were unsure. In my mind, I think this was you. Now you said it may have been another one of our illustrious colleagues, Isaac Wilder, who was
I
in our
think.
class until about eighth or ninth grade. But it was so funny that it has to be mentioned, which is we were in Mrs. Buckles's humanities class, which was I think we were probably in like eighth grade. And again, halfway through the class, either you or Isaac, it's like Schrodinger's cat. It's like it could be either one,
Right. Right. Or yeah.
again was missing. And then about halfway through the class, in my mind, it's you. So I'm just going to say it's you. Just there was a whiteboard. This is now the room that is now for current HBHA people. This is now Maura Tommy's room, and I'm not sure. I should have checked beforehand to see if the whiteboard operates the same way.
Is it still like the double whiteboard?
Like slide it up.
Yes.
There was like
storage behind it
underneath it. And just out popped either you or Isaac. And one of you, I want to say, was just hiding in there for like 40 minutes of class and was like, oh, okay, I guess it's just time. Maybe the idea was to hide in there at the beginning and then just pop out as a joke, but then just like class started and kept going. And there was never the right time. And then it was just like, it's time to emerge. If you're a listener from the class of 2008, or perhaps you're Isaac himself, let us know if this was indeed Isaac or Jordan who emerged from the whiteboard after 30 minutes of waiting for it.
Right. I was certainly there. I remember it. And the only reason I think it wasn't me is because I'm a little too claustrophobic to like hide in a dark space that's slightly small for that long. It's the only reason I think maybe I didn't.
Fear of Herzl, fear of the soccer ball coming to you,
fear
trapped in a bathroom, and
yes,
of being trapped behind a whiteboard.
This is therapy
of enclosed spaces. Or there's a recurring theme here that I think we're processing together here.
Yeah, I should pay you as my therapist.
This is free of charge. HBHA Law is a free.
Thank you. Wow.
Free.
You want therapy? You want to figure out why you about all your flaws in life? Come on HBHA Law and talk to Micah.
Yeah, no, I'll help you. For the listeners, they'll get entertainment, and for the guests, they will get to process their claustrophobia-based trauma. Well,
exactly.
we kind of briefly touched on the Israel trip, but a big part of, I would say, of our experiences was we got to do a lot of things outside of the school building.
It was amazing.
There was the basketball trips, Israel trips. We went on a really cool trip every year of middle school. We're sixth grade. We went to Sabra. Seventh grade, I think we did just a tour of Kansas. And
Kansas trip, yeah.
We went to Chicago.
Chicago, yeah.
Okay. So whether it was like an actual like trip outside of the state or just maybe a cool field trip on a one-day experience, any memories from any of those that stick out to you as you were like, man, that was just a really cool place we got to go to or thing we got to do? I know we went to several basketball trips. We went to Baltimore. We went to Sarachek at least a couple of times when we were in high school, which was also really cool.
Yeah, looking back, it's kind of crazy. Maybe that's normal. I don't know. Maybe that's normal. We go on like 10
nonstop. A lot of places.
Yeah, we went a ton. I mean, I remember vividly standing. There's this in Chicago on the Chicago trip. There's a huge park. It's like an open field next to, I think it's either Soldier Field or like the art museum there, like the famous art museum. And it was just like we had downtime and we were just like playing football for like an hour. And
I remember
running around. It was kind of chilly. We were just like tackling each other, and it's kind of a bigger deal to go to Chicago and have just like that. Like when you're from living in Kansas, when Chicago is Kansas City's grown quite a bit since we were in eighth grade. So Chicago is like a huge city. So it was just fun to. I have memories. It was like raw, good time. Everyone was so happy and just like excited to be together. I think I was thinking about this before before we met, went to Israel, like you said, twice, and that was a pretty like rare experience to be able to go there. Like ninth grade is pretty young. Like you get to see it for the first time and be like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. Like you're in like the middle of like halfway around the world, having like an immersive experience with other kids your age who live in Israel. Like we were like very close with them. I think we saw them when we came back for the March of the Living too, even though it wasn't a trip to see them.
And some of them, I maybe this is, correct me if I'm wrong, some of them came to Kansas City. Like
they all did. It was
yeah,
like an
they all
exchange
came to
program.
Kansas. Yeah. So and yeah, it was really cool. It was Ramallah and Gezer, I want to say, is the other city.
Yes.
And we were with them pretty much for a lot of the trip for like a week. And I want to say that ninth grade Israel trip we went on, that was a pretty short-lived trip. I'm not sure how it came about. Like, it's not like that was like
It was like a 1 year thing. It was a 1 year thing.
I think we were the first class to do it, and maybe like one or
Yes.
two other classes after us did that. I'm not sure exactly how it came
Yeah.
about. But yeah, we got to go. We each like partnered up with a kid from Ramallah or Gezer, and we got to go to their school for a day and just like immerse
Yeah.
follow them through the school day. And I remember that like participating in the classes, and they were like,
Oh,
"Yeah,
yeah.
like a student here," and it was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also crazy because it's a weird juxtaposition. Like, okay, this is them. You're kind of doing all the same stuff, but like, also it's totally different because like you're all of them, regardless of like what they want to do or like what their like career aspirations are, educational aspirations, like they're all going to the military after and like serving their country for a few years and just like meeting them and being like, oh, that could just be me. Just having to do that is just a crazy kind of like, meeting of realities. And it was cool to see that early on. And then I ended up I think after, before I started med school, I led a birthright trip. And so having those kind of like two trips in my belt to like, kind of like, I was kind of not used to being in Israel, but it's sort of, I knew what it was like and was able to kind of be a guide to others who were going for the first time. So that was helpful to be able to do that later in life too.
Oh yeah. Really quick about that. How was leading that birthright trip? How was that experience?
It was great. I mean, I think if for listeners that have been to Israel and kind of done the like 10-day kind of standard itinerary, it's kind of that. And so it's really cool to see people doing it the first time because it's such like most people going on birthright have a Jewish identity, but not a strong one, or like one that they haven't explored super deep, or else they kind of probably would have been already. Um, so and a lot of them are just kind of like, I think probably going there to get a free trip and party like in their mind. But then they get there and you see that they're like enamored by the country and the people and kind of this whole country that is, you know, founded on Jewish, ideals. And it's just like so eye-opening. And then being able to kind of just like, there's a tour guide. I'm not like showing them around and telling them all about all this stuff, but I'm just sort of like there to make sure that they're okay and, make sure they're not getting out of line or getting locked in a bathroom or something. And it's great. I recommend anyone who's been to Israel should do that, not only because it's an amazing experience, it's a free trip, you can extend your trip. And then they also like, for like 5 years after, every month they'd like email and be like, we need a guide for this trip, that trip, we'll pay all this stuff. So it's a great networking experience. It's a great way to spend 2 weeks. And a good way to like give back since, we got to go to Israel so many times for free.
Yeah, that's very cool. All right, we've explored a lot of the lore. I mean, there's endless lore to plumb, right? We could
endless
depths of HBHA for a decade, which we did. We did it for 13 years together. So
yeah, well, 12 for me. 12 for me.
No, 12 for me. 13.
But 12 for me too. There was 1 year I didn't go. Do you remember what year?
Oh my goodness. Oh my god. And there's quite a tale about that. Oh yeah. So I forgot. Yeah. So Jordan left 1 year. I want to say 7th grade.
That's right.
There we go.
See, the least important year. The least important year.
Yeah. Obviously. So 7th grade, you left the school, and you went to a public school for a year. What made you decide to return?
I don't really know why.
Why, kind of, but
yeah. No. I know what you're getting at. I'm not really sure why I left, but I think, I went to public school for a year. It was fine. Seventh grade is a hard year for, everyone's at different stages of, maturity, and, everyone's kind of getting their bearings as like an adolescent. And, I may have gotten stabbed with a pen
Yeah.
by somebody at school, which isn't the only reason I left, but it didn't leave a positive taste in my mouth.
But it did leave a mark, quite literally.
It was there for a while. It was there for a while.
Yeah, that was pretty rude. I'm not sure
It was rude.
what you could have possibly done to have instigated that. I'm not blaming for being stabbed with a pen, but I'm wondering what caused this other student to be like, it's time for me to jam my pen into Jordan's back.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Again, a little bit of a foggy memory of that, but I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure I was the gold student. Then this, I'm not sure I was like just minding. I was just minding my own business. But I didn't deserve to be stabbed, but maybe I had some tiny role in it.
Maybe you tried doing one of those iconic standing slide tackles in the hallway, and he didn't.
Right, just practicing. I was like, I need to learn how to. I got to get really good at the standing slide tackle. That's all I got.
Yeah, well, we're glad that you did return.
Same.
There's and again, just to give listeners a sense of kind of our class of 2008 here that we're talking about, and I know that one of the recurring themes I've heard just from talking to many people in this podcast is how even after they graduate, people go different directions and have families and are starting their lives all over the country, sometimes all over the world. There is sometimes still that like special connection where it's very easy to fall back in, and they still keep in close contact with people like you and I and many people in our class. We still have a running text thread that is in use on pretty much a daily basis. 95% of it is connected to Chiefs, Royals, and Jayhawks talk. And then like about 5% is someone being like, hey, guess what? Like, I'm having twins. And then it's like, yes, that's awesome. But also Patrick Mahomes threw for 4 touchdowns yesterday.
Also awesome.
And that's equally awesome. But it's great.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just like we're still in each other's lives all the time. And even if it's not every single detail, I don't know everything that you've been up to in New York, but it's just great that not every school is going to have classes keeping in that close of contact with each other 17 years after graduating and knowing what's going on and keeping people up to date and being like, hey, I'm coming back into Kansas City for a week. Let's get together and let's do something.
Right. It's really amazing. And most of my, non-HBHA friends don't have a tight-knit high school group of friends this far into life. People kind of venture, go to college, get a job, get married, kind of find new groups, and it kind of fades away for a lot of people. So I think it's a testament to how close we were and how, I mean, again, all these, not just where we sitting in class together, we went through all these experiences that we talked about for the last, 45 minutes, but just, really like set the foundation for our life. And I think it's, people ask, they're like, wasn't it weird going to school with only 21 kids? Like, wasn't that just, you couldn't get away from certain people or you couldn't like escape it? It's like, wasn't like that at all. I mean, I understand where they're coming from. I don't know why that might happen, but it was never like that.
No, it was great. I would be remiss if I let the episode end without mentioning the fact that Jordan is a part of one half of my favorite photograph in the history of the world of myself, which is an incredible picture that I have on my phone that I will definitely be, while I'm talking right now in post-production, I will be putting it on this video. It's a picture of me and Jordan standing side by side, probably in 6th grade. And, Jordan was a tall fellow early, and I was a short fellow early. And I've grown a little bit since. But again, I was also
a lot
than the rest of the class. But we do kind of look like we're maybe 13 years apart in age. And so we were just hanging out. And it's an incredible photo that if you might know the one I'm talking about, Jordan, but if not, you'll see it when it's uploaded here, and it's tremendous.
Yeah, I mean it is tremendous. That's the right word. I mean, I'm at 5 times the size of you, and that's not a joke. That's actually the truth. I'm 5 times bigger than you. Like, you're probably 40 pounds, and I'm probably close to 200 pounds. I'm actually 5 times the size.
Well, we will conduct a scientific experiment to see how many there were. But
you also have to remember, I was one of the older kids in my class, and you were one of the youngest kids in your class, and then you skipped a grade. So I was like 2 years older than you.
We're about a year and 11 months apart because you're born in July of 1989, and I was born in June of 1991.
Right. This also led to the Micah and I lived close to each other. Our family houses were fairly close to each other, so that also led to me being I was one of the first people to get my restricted license, which you can get at 15 years old. Is that still true in Kansas?
As far as I know, yeah, I believe that's
People in the Northeast are absolutely shocked that they let kids drive when they're 15 alone. They're absolutely shocked. Which,
uh,
like, looking back on it, like, I cannot imagine that. But I was Micah's personal taxi driver for like 4 years before he
yeah, it
got a
was pretty
license.
great. He would pick me up in what I deemed the Hoopsta mobile. Because the license plate said Hoopsta, Hoopsta, and as you can, this was a Cadillac, yes,
1989 Cadillac Coupe de Ville, white.
1989 Cadillac Coupe de Ville, a white car, yes.
Yes.
The Hoopsta mobile picked me up on many occasions to go gallivanting about town, frequently to Sweet Tomatoes, which sadly no
Rest in
longer
peace.
rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Rest in peace.
Tomatoes, for people who don't know, was a buffet at about College in Antioch. I wouldn't say necessarily the finest of cuisines, but comforting, right? It's basically a big salad.
It was comforting.
It's a big salad bar, like a huge salad bar. It's very big. They would have 3 soups, usually like the chicken noodle and 2 other soups, a couple of pasta dishes, some pizzas, and then always like the ice cream machine for dessert. So we hit up Sweet Tomatoes at least like twice a month.
Yeah, we did some damage there.
We did some damage to Sweet Tomatoes. Sometimes Cinzetti's if we were feeling a bit fancier. Like that's the slightly more elevated Italian buffet in town. But either way, I was hopping in the Hoopsta mobile, and people can figure out why it's at Hoopsta based off of the story of you holding the fall.
Right. It also was my license plate. My license plate was at Hoopsta.
Exactly. That's why that's where the name came about. But no, thank you for the rides. I probably we'll just exchange the gas money that I didn't pay you for then for the claustrophobia based therapy that
the therapy. Yeah, thank you.
I think
I appreciate that.
I think it's a fair trade.
I would agree.
We would also one last HBHA memory before we move maybe to a rapid fire round is we would occasionally enlist, and this really was a whole high school endeavor, especially the boys in the high school, is we would create what was deemed a man wall. Can you maybe explain what a man wall was?
Man wall, another memory that you just unlocked that I hadn't thought about in a long time.
Man wall is very important. And maybe
man wall is
for HBHA students of today.
I think it should be. I think it should be brought back at least symbolically once after this episode is released. But there would be a moment in time between classes, and somebody would announce as very loudly in the high school locker room section. Man, they would start yelling "man wall," like man wall, man
very
wall.
Frequently
man
you.
Wall.
Very frequently you.
I was frequently
and also sometimes Josh King, class of 2007,
Josh King,
who was married to one of our classmates, Abby Sechrist, now Abby King. See the lore continue.
And what it would be a call to arms to create a wall. Like someone would trumpeteer the man wall call, and then we would then the bays, the locker. I don't know how it looks now, but there's like entrances to the locker bays that are maybe like 10 feet, like 8 feet wide, and then we would create a wall of a human wall, mostly men. I think some women got in there a few times, but we would squeeze so tight to create a wall that could not be broken through or adjusted by any force.
Yeah, probably a fire hazard. But it happened pretty frequently. It happened pretty often. There's probably a photo of it somewhere that I could dig up and find.
I definitely have a photo of one that either was like while it was being made or while it was being deconstructed.
Deconstructed. People slowly losing their balance and falling out like a brick that's poorly laid in there. We would also in middle school do water wars. Do you remember what we did when there was a trend of water wars? We would have these wars during the passing period where we would have chugging competitions from the water fountain to see who could drink longer. And you'd think, I don't know why, we were just like, who can drink from the water fountain longer? Yeah. And people would go for quite a while. But then class would start and it would just be people sprinting to the bathroom, or hopefully they didn't get trapped in said bathroom.
I mean, there's something to be said for that from a hydration perspective. Like that's positive, but certainly interfered with class time in the bathroom. But yeah, that was. I mean, there was lots of shenanigans that happened between class, and there was also at that time a soda machine for middle schoolers that was available with Fanta strawberry soda, which was not probably the best thing for energy levels in the classroom for sixth graders.
Oh, but good for taste. Good for taste.
Delicious, delicious. Like 60 grams of sugar in those things. Really good.
So as people can tell, there's really endless stories, and there was learning that took place too. Well, I mean, despite all of these
Yeah.
shenanigans that we said, and Jordan or not Jordan popping out from a whiteboard on occasion, or whatever it may be, or being a link in a wall chain. There was learning, and now you find yourself as a very respected medical doctor doing very important, great work. But I mean, it really is so fun because there's really just so many incredible stories. And one of the fun things about teaching here is, it's different than 17 years ago in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways, there's so much that's also the same, right? And it's like
Right.
there's variations in the story, but the closeness and the camaraderie in each class is kind of like their own unique stories and unique spin on things that come up. But there's always that closeness and like that almost like class character that it takes on, that each group takes on, which is super fun from my perspective to see as I see students graduating and moving on from there. All right, before I let you go here, I've got some rapid fire questions for you that I always like to toss off. So feel free to go in as much or little detail as you want with these. All right,
I'm ready.
let's start with the family life at home. Having twins has got to be pretty hilarious. Funniest or most amusing twin anecdote? I'm sure there's got to be something pretty chaotic or hectic or funny that's happened connected to having two baby twins at home.
Yeah, I mean it's again a party that we are not we can't leave. So we always try to make it a fun party. And it's we kind of said from the beginning that we have boy girl twins. So the girl who came out second, so she's the youngest, she's already bullying both her brother and older brother, her 4-year-old brother. So like she'll like crawl over and try to like take Maury, our 4-year-old Legos, and he'll just sort of like sit there and like just mope and be sad and feel like he can't do anything about it.
Because he'll get in
And
trouble. If
like
he takes it back, then he's the one getting chastised.
but he doesn't even try to like move it. He just like looks there and it's like he's defeated immediately. So it's just like already like, oh my gosh, like she's gonna own the house within like 6 months. And
Do they
the
walk
boys are
yet?
just like sitting there. No,
I
no,
can't
no,
remember.
no. They're not walking yet. That's gonna be yeah, I mean we got a lot. It's
Not
like
like 1 to 2 months left before just the chaos ensues.
yeah, there's like the 6 month like learning to walk, like drunk walker phase where there's like
Uh-huh.
falling into everything. So our house is fairly ready for it, but it's gonna there's gonna be a short period of time where it's a little bit of a big party at home, not just a little party.
As people could probably tell from this episode, you're a big sports fan. Favorite sports memory? It could be as a viewer, it could be as a student athlete, it could be as a player. But what's your all-time favorite sports memory?
All-time favorite sports memory is the touchdown pass that sealed the first Super Bowl against 49ers. When that moment when we knew for sure it was happening and that all of our pain was released.
Yeah, so there
And
were
years of
two
suffering.
there were a couple big moments there. There was like a little swing pass that gave us the lead that went out to
It was the next one, the one after that.
and then there was that a touchdown run, right? Where I think it was Damian Williams just like broke free
Yes, it was a run.
to give us
Yes,
and he was like holding up the football and it was glorious and we knew it was happening
yeah,
and
yeah,
it was incredible. It was wonderful.
yeah. The other one I'll say, which I'm actually surprised this didn't come up before, is it was like dress rehearsal for the play, and it was our senior year.
Alamada Halifax,
And
which yep. I was about to bring this up.
that night was the NCAA championship
Yep,
when KU was playing Memphis.
that's correct.
And we had cell phones, so there was texting. So we said, okay, everyone's turning off their cell phone, and your mom agreed to record the game for us on like TiVo or like whatever early
Yep,
recording it was.
everything is correct so far.
And we said, okay, we're gonna after dress rehearsal, we're all gonna get in my car and drive to Micah's house and watch it. And and we're just gonna like focus and just be surprised. So we get to we're driving. Your mom says there's 2 minutes left, but then she doesn't let us come in for 20 minutes.
Yes, everything is
And we're
right.
like, this is so weird. And then we then proceed to watch KU have like the most insane comeback. Mario Chalmers 3-point at the buzzer, overtime victory. And we're all like, we're seniors, like we're all going to KU next year. We all kind of like know that. And so we're just like, again, another moment where it's like all the pain has been released of all this time. So that was
It was
incredible.
me, you, and Ben White. Is I believe
Yes, yes,
you
yes.
were watching it there. So yes, to clarify here, every detail of that was 100% correct. Yeah,
Thank you.
Hellethata, directed by Seth Dimbert. To my knowledge, the only musical HBHA has done. And you alluded to your roles in the play. To be clear, you did not act in any of the plays, which you would have been amazing.
No,
But I think maybe every year of high school, or at least many of them,
light guy.
you operated the lights behind the scenes. So Hellethata
Yeah.
was a very silly, very funny musical of Jewish parody songs written by Alan Sherman, who's kind of the
It's
weird,
actually hilarious.
weird out of his day. And they were loosely stitched together into a play. It was a 5-person cast, and I was one of the people in it. And yeah, it was like the night or 2 nights before the show, and we were rehearsing deep into the night. Yeah. And so we had, like you said, we kept it silent. We didn't know what happened. The only thing we were confused about is I remember, like you said, my mom saying, "We'll tell you when the game is over." To her credit, even though this was the most incredible game ever, she just went upstairs. She was like, "Come on in."
Yeah, whatever.
Tell us. And as we're watching, and the reason why there was such a delay is because it had gone into overtime, even though there were only 2 minutes left. And as we were watching, we fell down by 9 points with 2 minutes left.
We're like, there's no way this happened.
What's happening here? And we were maybe on an hour and a half delay of everyone else finding out, but it was just as glorious.
So glorious.
One of the best moments of all time. No, I'm glad you shouted that out. You're a traveler, as you mentioned. What's one place in the world that you haven't been that you'd love to go to?
That's a great question. I think Amy and I talk a lot about going to Spain. We haven't been to Spain. A lot of our friends have. They say great things. Some of the best food is there. So that's one. We also, there's like the Hawaiian Islands, like the more remote ones, sound very sweet. Our friend, I think Scott Bratt has been to some of the more remote ones and speaks very highly of them. So those two are kind of big ones. It's kind of, Hawaii is exorbitantly far away from us, as it is for you, but more, more so for me. So don't think those will happen soon, but that's on the big bucket list once the kids get a little older. So yeah, those two.
Very nice. How about, this might be kind of a strange one, but I wonder if you have an answer for it. As someone who is, an expert on the human body, as someone who studied, is there a favorite like part of studying medicine that just like really interested you the most? It might not be something that you are always practicing on a day-to-day basis, but as someone who spent so much time studying medicine, is there something where you're like, I'm just always fascinated by, like, I don't know, how our nervous system functions or whatever it might be?
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting kind of like niches of, again, emergency medicine. You're seeing kind of every specialty in a certain way. So you get to kind of picture, some are much more, I've found myself kind of getting like the orthopedic aspects, because orthopedics is really just like physics. Like when someone injures a bone or dislocates or fractures a bone or has an issue with that, it's all like physics and mechanics. So it makes a lot of sense. And so, when people come in with like, shoulder dislocations, knee dislocations, and need like, the wrist kind of set back into place, I find that stuff very interesting. We're experts at also providing like sedation and analgesia to people who need those procedures done. So it's not like a traumatic experience. So it's like a very unique role where kind of like orthopedists are very good at taking care of things in the operating room and putting things, perfect back into place. We kind of are the ones who can kind of temporize it in a safe and efficient manner, and then hopefully in a pain-free or painless way. People come in, they're having the worst of their life. Their wrist is pointing the wrong way, and then we get them in a splint and get them back into place, and they're happy, which is a weird thing to do. Someone's happy at the end of that, so it's a very enjoyable part of my job.
Well, I think we'll wrap up there with you making people's negative days turn into a positive one by setting their wrist correctly, which who wouldn't be happy about that? But for real, this has been super fun. Like I said, I've been looking forward the entire time I've done this podcast to getting a chance to chat with a fellow class of 08er, and I thought that you would be a perfect person to talk to. And we shared dozens of the memories that we have, and there's hundreds more, which is part of the fun of doing this podcast for me, is hearing all those, knowing if I have all of these stories and you have all these stories from our time together, and then getting the chance to hear all these other people's stories from years and years and years of HBHA lore. So Jordan, thank you so much. Enjoy time in New York, and anytime you're in Kansas City, it'll be wonderful to have you back. All right, bye-bye.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. This was great. Bye.